Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Cavan-Smith. Tonight, Nairobi's fire service is slammed by the thousands of residents of a neighbourhood in the Kenyan capital who lost their homes in a blaze over the weekend. At least 4 people were also killed. Also, the African Union picks its way through a number of tricky issues, including aviation and potential sanctions. As the bloc's annual summit in Addis Ababa comes to a close, we look at its response to allegations that China may have spied on states from the continent. And the hydroelectric dam Ethiopia is building on the Nile was also a hot topic at the AU conference. Egypt and Sudan have long opposed the project, but leaders from the countries now say they're closer to reaching a deal over the management of the river's waters. But first, Kenya's government has pledged almost 400,000 euros will be spent on helping victims of a blaze that ripped through a settlement in Nairobi on Sunday. At least 4 people were killed and around 6,000 have lost their homes. The director of the fire department and his deputy have reportedly been sent on leave because of the poor coordination in the tackling of the emergency. Meanwhile, many people from the affected Langata estate say that they feel that they've been let down. Lenny Ravaga tells us more.
They're not so sure exactly what happened, if it was an arson attack or an electrical fault, because you do understand that this is an informal settlement, so there are illegal electrical connections from the main grid. But 4 fire engine trucks arrived within minutes of the fire. However, they ran out of water and they couldn't access the informal settlement. So residents became quite agitated. It took a combined effort of the Nairobi County government, local residents, and the National Disaster Management Unit to actually put out the fire at 1:30 a.m. And this is 4 hours after the fire started. Now, people were very agitated because less than a kilometer away is an airport, the Wilson Airport, and a military installation also to boot. Now, these 2 installations have capacity and fire engines and personnel who have been trained to put out fires of this magnitude. So the residents were really agitated. And adding to that, politicians were campaigning in this area a few months ago, and no political boot had been on the ground until the Deputy President, His Excellency William Ruto, was on the ground to actually assuage residents and condole with them. So residents were pretty peeved that, number one, capacity to put out the fire was not there, and number 2, there was not political marshalling to come and control and condole with the families.
So just a few months ago, it was Kenyatta who was endorsing the county's investment in 26 new fire engines, saying that it was a turning point in its record of dealing with blazes in the capital. Despite that move, and despite the criticism that we've seen over the weekend's response, has much changed since then?
Not much has changed. It was a good gesture on His Excellency's part, but Georgia, you do understand that Nairobi is a capital city of around 4 million people, and these are around 17 constituencies. So it means that each constituency had 1 fire engine allocated to it. So it means, number 1, there was no capacity, and there is still no capacity to deal with fires of this magnitude. Number 2, we don't have personnel who are adequately trained to handle fires of this magnitude. The governor, during the campaigns, that is Mike Sonko, the Nairobi governor, had pledged to actually recruit 300 new firefighters. This hasn't happened yet, so it's a drop in the ocean from my perspective.
Lenny Ruvaga there for us in Nairobi. Well, ongoing water shortages in Cape Town have prompted rating agency Moody's to warn that the crisis could affect the city's credit rating. The move hasn't been taken yet, but Moody's is concerned that the drought is a threat to social order. Water is likely to be cut from the taps on April the 12th, and residents forced to queue at collection points for 25-litre daily rations. Protests against the management of the situation have already begun. Moody's predicts that, combined with the poor sanitation of the city, the emergency will also endanger public health. Cameroon's confirmed that the leader of a separatist movement has been extradited to Yaoundé from Nigeria. Sisiku Ayoktabe and 46 of his supporters were sent across the border on Monday. He and 9 others had been detained in Abuja in early January. His lawyers say that they had been held in secret at a hotel there. Amnesty International is concerned that they could face torture or unfair trial in Cameroon. Yaoundé's branded them terrorists and said that they will answer for their crimes. The government's cracked down hard on secessionists, calling for English-speaking regions to break away from the French-speaking majority. Leaders from more than 40 countries on the continent were in Addis for the close of the African Union summit on Monday. There was a packed agenda, from deciding on the bloc's reaction to the US president's recent alleged vulgar remarks about African nations to announcing plans that could bring down the cost of air travel in the region. But one controversy that stuck out was allegations from French newspaper Le Monde that China, who built and funded the African Union headquarters, had spied on the AU. Nicolas Chemin tells us more.
For the last 2 days, the African heads of state, when we asked them about this story, they all said no comment. They were clearly a little embarrassed by this story. But then finally on Monday evening, Paul Kagame, the new president of the AU, he spoke about the issue. He said, first of all, that African presidents had nothing to hide. He then said that spying was not a Chinese specialty. He did say that it would have been better if the building had been built by Africans, because what happened in 2012 is that this building was constructed by the Chinese, funded by the Chinese, and offered by the Chinese to the African Union. And according to Le Monde newspaper, it's between 2012 and 2017 that they placed bugs and microphones and computers to spy on the African presidents. A little earlier today, we spoke to the Chinese ambassador at the African Union, and we asked him what he thought about this investigation by Le Monde newspaper. Let's take a listen.
I think it's a sensational story. I really doubt the intention of, very suspicious of the intention of the report. You know, the report was published just 1 day before the summit. And I think that they did it on purpose, and I think that they did it because they really want to attract the attention and damage the Chinese image and undermine the relationship and cooperation between China and Africa, and China and the African Union.
Now, Nick, there have also been a lot of other very difficult issues to unpick in Addis. How has that all affected the atmosphere at the summit?
Well, everyone here told us that it was quite a tense summit. There were tensions, for example, between Paul Kagame and countries like South Africa and Egypt that initially criticised his idea of taxing imports to boost the AU budget, because these countries, they export a lot and they fear that their exports will then be taxed. But there was also criticism of what they call the Kagame method by southern African countries. They feel that he is too authoritarian, and they say that the tradition here at the African Union is more to believe in consensus. And I think the final speech of Kagame to close this summit really summed up the situation. It was an extremely brief speech in which he said, basically, among other things, that we now have to start meetings on time. And I think that really summed up the general atmosphere that has prevailed here in Addis Ababa these last 2 days.
Well, the hydroelectric dam Ethiopia is building on the Nile was also a hot topic at the AU conference. Egypt and Sudan have long opposed the project, saying that it will disrupt the flow of water to their countries. After months of stalled talks, leaders from all three nations finally sat down on Monday and vowed to work as one to resolve the long-standing dispute. Clément Bonnereau tells us more.
Soothing words from the Egyptian president after months of growing tensions between Egypt, Sudan and Ethiopia. Abdel Fattah al-Sisi said there was no crisis between the three countries and vowed to solve a long-standing dispute over the hydroelectric dam Ethiopia is building on the Nile River.
As responsible leaders, we met and we spoke. We agreed that there would be no harm on anyone. What's in the interest of Ethiopia is in the interest of Egypt, and what's in the interest of Sudan is in the interest of Egypt too. We are speaking as one nation, not three nations, with one voice.
Ethiopia says the €3.9 billion Grand Renaissance Dam, which is now 63% completed, is crucial to its economic development. The project is expected to more than double the country's electricity production and make it Africa's largest power exporter. Egypt and Sudan, however, have long opposed the project. Both countries heavily rely on the Nile River for their water supply and fear the dam will harm their economies. On Monday, the three nations decided to put their differences aside. They agreed to set up a mutual fund to invest in infrastructure across the region and complete a technical study of the dam's environmental impact within a month. They also pledged to meet every year to tackle any future disagreements.
And finally, South Africans are celebrating the 5th Grammy win of homegrown all-male choir Ladysmith Black Mambazo. The ensemble picked up the Best World Music album for their latest work, Shaka Zulu Revisited, the 30th anniversary collection. The singers have brought traditional Zulu harmonies to a global audience for around 5 decades now, after first coming to worldwide attention when Paul Simon enlisted the group for his 1968 album, Graceland. Well, we'll leave you with the sounds of some of their winning singles. Thanks for joining us. Do so again. Take care.
I need you, I love you, I need you, I love you.